Born in Germany, raised in Ireland, lives in London and LA. Is it any wonder that Michael Fassbender is able to disappear into any number of characters? Look at this. Michael shed 30 pounds to play the lead role in a film called Hunger. It recreates, disturbingly, the last 6 weeks in the life of the political activist and Irish hunger striker, Bobby Sands.
I went there when I was 12. Big cross-country race for the boys. And we're all in the back of a minibus headed towards Derry one morning.
For an Irishman like Michael to play a national icon like Bobby must be pretty intimidating. But where Bobby Sands' life was marked by violence and death, Michael actually had an idyllic upbringing in the south of Ireland, though he does remember what it felt like to travel to the north with army checkpoints and soldiers carrying guns. After high school, Michael moved from Ireland to London to study acting, and before long was a drama school dropout, landing mainly small parts in British TV projects. Hunger was his big break, and soon after, Michael was getting calls from people like Tarantino, who offered him a part in Inglourious Bastards.
I must say, damn good stuff, sir.
Cronenberg, who cast Michael in A Dangerous Method. That's a film that looks at the friendship between Carl Jung and Sigmund Freud.
I think of you more as Galileo, and your opponents as those who condemned him, while refusing even to put their eye to his telescope.
But all the talk these days is about Michael's full frontal turn in a film called Shame. It reunites him with the Hunger director Steve McQueen and lays bare some of the fearless questions about the nature of compulsion and sex addiction. Please welcome Michael Fassbender.
Nice to see you, man.
Good to see you.
How are you?
Good, thanks.
Welcome to the program.
Thank you very much.
Does Steve McQueen say, hey, look, I have this character. He's a really twisted sexual deviant, possibly sexually addicted. There's a backstory of some deep family hate or something. You're perfect for it.
Yep, it's like you know me too well. Yeah, it's just sort of a case of, you know, Steve has changed my life. You know, he changed my life in 2007 by giving me the opportunity and taking, you know, the chance on an unknown. Yeah. In Hunger. And then so really, I mean, I didn't even, you know, see a script when I agreed to it. I mean, I just said whatever, whenever, you just tell me where to be and for however long you need me, really. So,
but then when you did see the script.
Yes. Well, I kind of knew what I was in for, really. I always sort of presume the worst, even sort of, you know, and then sort of you can't be sort of shocked or sort of surprised. Because he had told me what the idea was back in 2008, you know, about sort of this character who was sort of stuck in this sort of pattern of abuse. And so I kind of knew where we were going to be going. And then when I saw the script, I was, well, the first thing I just thought was like, wow, it's really sort of beautifully written and you know, full credit to Abby and Steve. They did a really great job there.
Are you turning down some of the most shit movies ever to balance this out?
You know, I'm sort of, I don't know, things have just sort of happened in such a way that, you know, it could have been like, it's the ideal scenario, what I would have ever sort of dreamed of when I was 17 and starting out. You know, the first thing you think is like, okay, I just want to sort of be, you know, a jobbing actor. That's already, you know, a percentile that you'd be happy to be part of. So then to be in a position where, you know, Quentin Tarantino, David Cronenberg, Steve McQueen, Ridley Scott, Matthew Vaughn, I mean, you know, so on, so on. It's just Steven Soderbergh. It's like, wow, you're like, okay, I'm really spoiled now.
Yeah. Well, listen, if any of the characters you've played have stayed with you, that's a pretty messy head.
What do you mean? No. No, you know, it's not, you bring some residue home with you, but to be honest, it's sort of part and parcel. You train yourself to
get rid of it.
Wash away, you know. And I do a lot of sort of preparation so that then when I come on set that I really can sort of go for it and that I leave everything on the floor there, as it were. So.
When you were a kid in Ireland, how far removed were you psychologically from the Troubles?
Well, you know, in Ireland we sort of, education is a big thing, you know, and we have got a great education system there, which thankfully, you know, it's great. Like, I mean, a state sort of education system. We don't have really a big private education sector. So the state schools are pretty well looked after. And so history is part and parcel of being Irish, you know. You study the history of the country. Right. My mum came from the north, so for me, I was always going up there for my holidays, because like my cousins were up there. And there was a marked difference, you know. Once you went over the border, there was people, you know, there were soldiers. and there was watchtowers and helicopters, and we had to get out of the car and sort of, you know, soldiers go through the boot and stuff. So it's a very real sort of transition from the south to the sort of north back then. So it's always sort of been part of my life, you know. Now it's great to go up there and see a sort of a Northern Ireland where people are sort of, you know, just getting on with living and you know, they're enjoying peace.
I remember going there. I rode a motorcycle up there, and I saw that big mural of Bobby Sands. And I'm thinking, like, still today, it means so much, and he means so much. Playing him, that, yeah.
Yeah.
Was it like that?
Well, yeah. I mean, I was, you know, there's a lot of sort of pressure, and then of course, you know, you want to, you know, when you're dealing with topic matter like that, especially in Ireland, you want to make sure that, you know, that it's in the right hands. And luckily, you know, Steve was dealing with it, and it was in the right hands, and that you deal it with the sort of, you deal with it with the respect that it requires.
On The Hunger, was the crew politically diverse? And so how did that play in?
No, we didn't really talk much about the politics, you know, and that's the great thing again, I think, with Steve, you know. Even though this, you know, talking about sort of hunger and the politics, people didn't really bring up the politics that much, you know, in the media as well. It was because he makes these stories human, you know, and it's like, again, human beings and what human beings are capable of doing to themselves and to one another, and, you know, what are we doing and how are we trying to sort of exist together on this planet. And again, with shame, you know, even though there's some, you know, pretty risque stuff, you know, in there, people haven't been really focusing on the sex, you know, because again, it's the human condition. It's like, what are we doing? You know,
Is he a sex addict? Is the character a sex addict?
I thought you meant Steve.
Yeah. Well, I assume he has to have some relationship with it to make it. But is he?
He is, and you know, again, it's that sort of thing when I think, you know, when people say sex addict, people get nervous and we sort of laugh it off, or we go, well, that's just sort of, you know, I suppose we were introduced to it first from the celebrity world, and people are like, well, they're just spoiled, aren't they? And but the fact of the matter is, you know, that there is 24 million people in the United States alone that claim to be suffering from this affliction.
Yeah.
And you know, I've met a couple of them, and it's a very real problem for them. And that's the thing, that's why I like Brandon, the character, you know, because it's not like he's just going, hey, you know, regardless of whatever's going on around him, that he thinks, you know, that he's having a good time and he's you know, he's living his life. No, he's struggling with this. You know, he doesn't want to be the guy that can't get through his day in the office without sort of, you know, going to the bathroom, relieving himself.
With so much shame and dysfunction in him, would it be much more difficult for you if you were a method actor?
Yeah, you know, I don't, you know, thankfully, I'm not.
You also got a chance to play Carl Jung in David Cronenberg's film.
Yeah.
Would Freud have a field day with your Brandon character?
Yeah, you'd love him, I suppose. I think Jung would definitely send him to Freud, and he'd spend months with him. But you know, there's another character there, sort of actually in the film, that played by Vincent Cassel, who's Otto Gross, and he sort of goes about living, and his whole sort of thing is don't repress anything and follow your impulses and whatever, you know.
Which of the three do you like more?
I guess I would sort of take a little bit of all of them, really. There's elements that I sort of can see. I think Otto Gross is definitely his ideas, you know, that it's not cool to go about living life like that, I don't think. I mean, the problem is if you live so recklessly and without responsibility, there are casualties that are left around you, you know.
But that's also in a weird way, so far we haven't heard that from you, but the celebrity world, they live that way in a lot of cases because it's an enabled society.
Yeah, I mean, it's a buffet, isn't it? I mean, it's sort of like, okay, look, you can have all of this. And that can be dangerous for sure. I mean, like, again, the choice is relentless. And you know, it's yeah, I think, you know, people sort of start to dabble maybe, and then next thing you know, you're in it. And it's hard to get out then, you know. It's a lot easier to go in than it is to get out of the
How
room.
are you navigating that?
I mean, you know, I sort of keep things pretty simple, really. You know, I've been busy working, and luckily, I suppose in a lot of respects, you know, I'm sort of 34, and you know, I've sort of done regular things, you know, regular jobs, and I've sort of, you know, I've seen a little bit, and so I think you know, I'm maybe better equipped than I would have been if I was 23, you know,
Yeah.
to, you know, the things that sort of the distractions of the business don't really seduce me in the way they probably would have done, you know, 10 years ago. You know, like I said, I'm sort of feel so blessed that I'm working with these amazing people, and that's already, you know, massive for me.
We have one of those amazing people who wants to weigh in on the conversation today, David Cronenberg.
Michael, you just won the Coppa Volpi in Venice for Best Actor. Unfortunately, you won it for not my movie, you won it for Shame. And it's obvious to me that in Shame, you're just really playing yourself, you know? This crazy, drug-taking, naked guy who has sex with a lot of people. Whereas in my movie, you play a physician at the turn of the century, a psychoanalyst, a psychologist. Don't you think you really should have won for A Dangerous Method? That's my question.
He's always promoting, isn't he? It's like he even sort of cuts in my interview here. David is amazing. It's like it's just great that even now, sort of through the television screen, he's taking the piss out of me. That's pretty much what he did for like 3 months working with him on Dangerous Method. He's a great guy, a great sense of humor.
We'll come back. We'll find out what it's like to you know, if Cronenberg has any similarities with Quentin Tarantino, and we'll get into that and maybe how he handled himself in a bar fight. Anthropology, Michael Fassbender after this. We're back with Michael Fassbender, a 21-year-old version of you.
Yeah, that was pretty weird to see that. Yeah.
But even back then, you were showing your stuff.
I know. I insist on it. It's like, well, I'll do the job if I can get naked.
It was like the first 4 minutes of Shame. I was like, wow, there it is again. There it is again. And obviously, there's a comfort level, and it is acting. But in your head, do you have to get ready to be like everybody will be seeing everything I have now?
Yeah, you try not to think of that. I mean, yeah, you know, obviously you feel like embarrassed and awkward, and then, you know, you just go, okay, well, better get on with it, and, you know, yeah, you just sort of bless yourself and go for it. It's, you know, yeah, I mean, I knew that there was going to be a lot of that, so I had to sort of deal with it. I sort of prepared myself sort of beforehand, I suppose, in the sort of months leading up to it.
All right, Anthropology. Born in Germany, raised in Ireland. How are you in a bar fight?
Schizophrenic. You know, I think I've sort of, any of the sort of fights that I've got into in the past, I sort of always seem to be on the receiving end more so than sort of dishing anything out, really. Not that good, I think. I'm a fast runner.
Are you? Yeah. Who's funnier, Cronenberg or Tarantino?
I gotta say Cronenberg. I mean, there's just such a sort of wicked sort of mischief to the man. That it's, you know, you've got to be sort of quick, and even then, he always gets the last word, that's for sure.
The movie's called Shame. You got to check it out. It's Michael Fassbender, everybody. We'll be right back.